Can you imagine, maybe some of you can you imagine being estranged from a relative for 20 years or more? Jacob, who becomes Israel this week, the namesake of the Jewish people, the name of our synagogue, Jacob Israel sends messengers ahead of him to meet his brother Esau, who he hasn't seen in 20 years. The very name of this week's Torah portion, Vayishlach, means and he sent, meaning Jacob sent messengers with the following message in Genesis 32:5. Greetings to my brother Esau. Your humble servant, Jacob says. I've been staying with Laban and have delayed my return for a long time. I have acquired cattle, donkeys, sheep, and I'm now sending word to you to welcome me with friendship. The next line in the Torah, the messengers returned with this answer. We met your estranged brother Esau, and he is heading toward you. He has 400 men with him. The next line in the Torah, Jacob was very frightened. Who wouldn't be? In the spirit of our Superman exhibit, Jacob probably said, holy moly, I'm about to get killed. So Jacob divides his camp and says, if Esau comes and attacks one camp, at least the other camp will escape. And then Jacob does what we all do when we're in trouble, even if we haven't studied for a test. He prays. He prays hard to God and says, God of my grandfather Abraham, my father Isaac, you yourself, God, told me, return to the land where you were born and I will help you. Please, I pray, save me from the anger of my brother, from the hand of Esau. I am afraid of him. Jacob is expecting a battle. And it was precisely at this moment, this is when you cherry pick from the Bible, you miss the whole picture. It was exactly at this moment, after sending his family away across the Yabok River, when Jacob remained there alone, he fell asleep, and he dreamed of a stranger wrestling with him until dawn. And we could spend all night, and if you want to hear a great Torah teacher, Jim Edelman, tomorrow morning at 8:45, he's very funny and smart. But commentators interpret this encounter Jacob had as an inner struggle between Jacob and his inner conscience. And after the struggle, Jacob emerges as a stronger human being. He wrenched his hip socket. He becomes a new man. He is now ready to deal with Esau with a new name, Israel. This is the first time the name Israel appears in the entire Torah, right now. And it's because Jacob's 12 sons become the founders and leaders of the 12 tribes that they become known as the 12 tribes of Israel, Jacob's new name. But before we leave Esau, one midrash says that one of the reasons why Jacob was frightened was because he was concerned not about getting killed for stealing the birthright, but because after 20 years, maybe Esau would now be God's favored one instead of himself. Maybe God had switched favorites. How so? Because Esau had been fulfilling two important commandments that Jacob had unavoidably ignored. What were the two commandments that Esau was keeping, that Jacob was ignoring? First, Esau had been living in the Holy Land of Israel, while Jacob had lived outside of it. But second, and this relates to many of you, it was Esau who took care of his elderly parents, Isaac and Rebekah. Not Jacob. Jacob could not because he lived a long distance from his parents. Esau's distance and estrangement is not foreign to some families today. Remember the brothers Isaac and Ishmael? They separate as kids. The only time they appear together, at their dad's funeral. That happens sometimes, sadly still today. Jacob and Esau reunite this week after 20 years apart. Our patriarchs and matriarchs, unlike Superman, were hardly superheroes. Their families, if you want to feel better, were as dysfunctional, if not more so, than any of our own families. They, as we, need light when darkness fills the sky or separates families. A little light drives away much darkness, the mystics say. And every act of forgiveness, every reconciliation, lights a candle of hope in a dark world. It will be a full moon tomorrow night if you can peer through the clouds. And 1 week from Tuesday, at the darkest time of year, we increase the light with the start of Hanukkah. And we learn from the great London Reform rabbi and Holocaust survivor of blessed memory, Rabbi Hugo Green. In one of the most powerful stories I ever heard about Hanukkah, and there are survivors of the Holocaust in this chapel. He reminded us, Rabbi Green, there were times when the gift of a crust of bread, even a smile, could give one the will to live. Sometimes even a word. Because when Hugo and his dad were starving in Auschwitz, little Hugo thought his dad was crazy when he told his son to save the butter ration and the oil computed by the Nazis to liquidate and exterminate and kill an individual after 3 to 6 months. He asked him to save the butter and the oil to light the Hanukkah candles on the first night. But Dad, Hugo replied, they're starving us to death. Son, his dad said, as he made a wick out of his prisoner's gown and lit the Hanukkah candle. He said, son, we've learned in this place called Auschwitz that a person can live for 3 days without food. But I want you to always remember for the rest of your life looking at this light that a person cannot live for 3 minutes without hope. This Hanukkah light, my son, is the light of hope. Hugo and his father miraculously survived. His mother and sister did not. But the point holds. A single message of hope can make a world of difference. One act, whether it be a word of encouragement, a word of reconciliation, one act can inspire a person forever. We never know at the time the ripple of consequences set in motion by the slightest act of kindness. A word of praise and encouragement can give strength to someone losing the will to carry on. And friends, this is the season when you see the people who are happy, and I hear from all those who are losing the will to carry on. One of the enduring messages of Hanukkah, as I see it, is that when light is joined to light, we can all find a way forward. And that's the power of a synagogue and community like Temple. When we light the menorah, the goal is for the flame in our souls to get reignited. And that's what happens when Jacob and Esau meet. They get reignited. Guess what happens? Remember, Jacob fears the worst. What happens instead to spoil the story for you? Esau runs to greet his brother. Esau, the one who Jacob was worried with the 400 men, was going to kill him. Esau embraces his brother. It says that he kisses him. He cries. Then it says they both cry. They meet each other's wives and kids. Jacob offers gifts, but Esau says, I have enough. If only our kids said that at Hanukkah, right? I have enough, my brother. Let what you have remain yours. Jacob insists that he accept a gift, because it's rude, I guess, to turn down a gift from a long-lost brother. And then Jacob says, to see your face is like seeing the face of God. Yes, Les Mis stole that line from the Torah too. To love another person is to see the face of God. Did Jacob really see God directly? I'm going to end my sermonette by the summary comment of the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th century biblical commentators. They basically said that Jacob encountered God through his brother's face, his eyes, his emotion, his smile, his love. To see God in other people, whether through a bright smile or looking into their eyes, is to train ourselves like Jacob to encounter God in every one we meet. Oh, and one final thing. Jacob is now called Israel, but God will call our namesake Israel most of the time. But occasionally, he'll still call him Jacob. Why? As a reminder that the little boy is still in every man, and that little girl is still in every woman. Just as a tree adds new rings, so too do we add new chapters to the story of our lives. But we're still Jacob, even as we become Israel. So Shabbat Shalom, Chagurim Sameach. That's how you say Happy Hanukkah in Hebrew. You don't say Happy Hanukkah. You say, may it be a festival of light, bringing out light in others, as Jacob and Esau did, and as hopefully we'll do in everything we say and do. And let us say, Amen.